What is up, folks? You are joining me today at the top of Julia's property. Hello. Hope the camera's good. So today we're going to talk about a few things. How about we start off with the fact that this place I'm at, it's at the top of the hill, and it's probably the least trodden place in the entire property. And what I mean by that is places that are a little bit harder to get to, that are a little bit harder to reach. El Dorado comes to mind, behind a waterfall. These places have magic. Reason being, there's not many thinkers involved in these places where a thought can't cross. So when we talk about the metaphor of crossing the river, really we come back to Robert Frost saying the road that's least taken, least trodden on, least desirable, least attractive. Doesn't seem so easy, but it's full of ease, really. I mean, if you think about it, it's full of magic. I mean, that's the whole fruit and non-hybrids, native herbs and native grains. This is where it's at. Why? Because even though it's easier to go to the matrix and do all these things, it creates dis-ease within the body. Whereas it might be harder to eat slightly healthier, but to your body, that return, unmatched. There's no competition. When your body is free of mucus, free of sludge, free of waste, free of blockages. So now we're going to go into psychological blockages. So here I want to interject Bruce Lee. Basically, Bruce Lee said in one of his interviews, one of his famous ones, that tradition is degeneration. I mean, he didn't say those words exactly, but that's what he was saying. That all these fighting methods get in the way of me slapping my enemy across the face. That all these ideas of Aikido, Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, whatever it is, it's all a method. And so this is the same thing with thought. So we're going to get into a little bit of shadow work here. We're going to get into that idea of what we think is shadow work. When thought creates a method of becoming spiritual, and we'll parallel this with becoming the best fighter, it's limited always. Because thought can't predict. I mean, it can predict to a certain extent, but it can't see the future. Thought is very limited, right? Thought only calculates with what the variables that are presented to it. The thing is, when you fight, you have to take no thought. Why? You don't know where the enemy's coming from. You don't know what moves the enemy's going to pull. And you don't know what optimal fighting style you will have to take in order to beat the enemy, with least amount of casualty, hurt, effort, all of these things. So at some point, thought, which is effort, gets in the way of a good fighting style. You see what I'm saying? Of a clean hit. Because I'm thinking, how do I hit this guy in terms of Taekwondo, in terms of Jiu-Jitsu, in terms of whatever. So again, it now crosses over to the spiritual and then the psychological realms. We think by taking thought in a certain way, we will be able to take no thought. We think by recreating a certain activity that's repetitious, mechanical, and limited, is thought's effort, that we will somehow become enlightened. But I'm telling you that this is not the case. That enlightenment is not a process of thought. Doesn't mean thought has to be eradicated. More so, thought has to be put in its right place, meaning thought must recognize its own limits. Right? That when I come up to someone and say, and even with this whole alkaline electric thing, I don't know. I'm going through, life with the humility of saying, this is what the best I found so far with thought. But if something is presented to me that makes more sense, right? That, something that makes more sense than no mucus, something that makes more sense than native non-hybrid plants, something that makes more sense than genetic and chemical consistency, then I will follow. My fighting style will adapt. But how did I get to this point? Is no fighting style, no method. You see what I'm saying? When you use a method that arises out of no method whatsoever, meaning each time I enact a method, I'm already adapting 100% fully to the variables that are involved. Hence, there is no slack, there is no degeneration, there is no fall off of trying to emulate something. So again, for the psychological realm, right? This is why it's the path less trodden, because what the gurus are doing, what, to an extent everyone is doing, what all the people that perpetuate beliefs are doing, is telling you not to question. It's saying this is bad, the matrix is bad, or the matrix is good, right? It's a whole lot of accepting and denial. So let me slow down here and really get this through to you. The path least taken is to have no conclusion whatsoever, is to have no acceptance or denial in your movement whatsoever, right? It's just to see. When we are caught up in looking for seeing something, right? When we're predisposed to look out for something or have expectations for something or fight with a certain, again, intent, method, we don't see the enemy come at us. We don't see our own movements of what is optimal and what is not unoptimal, what is not optimal. So the path least taken is the path of just seeing, because it's so easy to fall in the grooves of belief, right? It's so easy to It's so easy to accept or deny, to conform or to rebel. But I'm saying that these are all processes of thought, of effort. So let's get into shadow work. Can you do shadow work with effort? No. The shadow is not something that is, manipulated through effort. It's just like the subconscious. The whole reason why it's called the unconscious is because you're not conscious of it. Right? So if I, walk down one of these mornings and I have a bad demeanor, I don't even know. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like this. Shadow work is not something that is done through the process of thought, which means there can't be any Bible, there can't be any book, there can't be any religion, there can't be any method or any fighting style to fight the shadow into submission. I hope that is very clear, because it is so dangerous when we try to become spiritual. We're disrespecting the shadow. We're disrespecting that which is not in the domain of control. The domain of control is the domain of that which is limited, is the domain of thought. Right? So when we say take no thought, you can't do that with a thought. And at the same time, it doesn't mean eradication of thought. This is the middle way. This is in two worlds in one. This is how, and again, before we go too deep into shadow work, this idea of duality. People are so easily talking about saying how this world is, this is the world of duality, this is the world of separation. Whoa, that's another belief. Don't accept so quickly. Don't deny that this world is still one with the world up above. Or the inner world, as above, so below. What does that imply? There is no duality. That any conflict that comes about is a belief of duality, is a belief in an illusion. So what is ultimate reality is not needing to believe at all. Because without belief, without thought, there is no illusion. There is no acceptance or denial of a certain dimension or a certain existence. I just see. I don't need an opinion to see. Does that make sense? In the same sense, when I fight off the enemy perfectly, I don't need to think ahead of time. You see? And maybe there is some adequate preparation. Maybe 10% of the battle is preparation, but 90% is being flexible, rigid, and agile, and open to the enemy's attack. So I hope that's clear, again, with this whole shadow work thing. The path least taken is the path of not saying the shadow is good, the shadow is bad, I need to coax my shadow into, acting for me. And then this thing, the guardian angel thing, it's another belief. I question everyone's guardian angel. I question my own guardian angel. Who is this angel that's guarding me? It's one thing if I act in such a way that I become a guardian angel. That's one thing. But this idea of, this guardian angel's protecting me, or oracle, for instance, that the guardian angel is telling me something I'm channeling, and I have this oracle and I'm channeling, and sometimes it could be true. But we've lost this sense of skepticism and doubt, this sense of sobriety. We're so drunk on our concepts of shadow work, of all these things. So yeah, I know that's some heavy stuff. But when we say shadow work, most people think shadow work means effort. But I think shadow work is effortless. That effort is the very thing that causes a shadow to be unintegrated. Right? Trying to train the dragon, trying to stop thinking is the most conflicted act, because it means that you're already implying that there's an observer that is separated that needs to become one. You never question the separation from the get-go. You see what I'm saying? So there's that. Here, give me 1 second. Let me just check if we're doing all right with the recording. Yeah, we're doing well. All righty. Lovely, beautiful people. It is just amazing living in a community like this, being on top of this hill by myself. Nothing to worry about. A few car noises here and there, a little bit of the residual matrix. But there's such a great serenity, joy, and learning in a path least taken, right? In a path that is alone, that is Solomon, that is in solitude. Because, the only problems that really exist are the problems that you create in your own mind. And I had a few posts about this too, but how can there be opposition or separation before thought exists? The apple, the forbidden fruit is thought. So the fruit itself is not bad, right? It's the intent of the fruit. So can thought be immaculately clear? Can it be an immaculate thought, an immaculate concept? Which means immaculate thinking is that I know, the thought knows, Gollum knows that he is limited, right? That his beliefs, his acceptance, his denial, his conformity, his rebellion is so limited. So no matter how much he tries to, shadow work with his limited existence, nothing will come about. That's why you can meditate as long as you want. You can pray as long as you want. You can do all these things as long as you want, but nothing will come of it. In fact, you'll probably become more dull trying to follow these methods of fighting styles and these spiritual practices. You'll become more degenerative, more rigid, more stuck. So we need to watch out for that and always question, which means what? To die. That's what Bruce Lee was saying too. What does it mean to die, folks? If you know how to die, you know how to live. Why? Because that means that any degenerative process can be cut and come to an end immediately. No hesitation. No need for attachment. That is death. Death is the ending of all attachments. And then when some attachments come, they come. When I eat a meal, I eat a meal. When I have, make love to a woman, there's that act. I don't have to be a monk and say, oh, no, woman, I ignore the beauties of the world. I ignore the beauties of earth. You see? So it's that, can thought not get in the way? That is shadow work. Shadow work is not focusing on that which I can't control, but rather it's saying, what am I controlling that is going wrong? You see? What efforts, what thoughts are coming into my own life that are impeding me and that are that serve as resistance. There we go. So again, thought is resistance or thought out of place. So can thought realize that it is always trying to play resistor and resisted, opposer and opposed, separation, right? This versus that. That's only a process of thought, right? Time, measurement, this versus that, now versus later, all thought. If thought didn't exist, it would just be one. There wouldn't be a distance. There wouldn't be a time. And again, time is okay. It's just now, what has the matrix become with it? What has the matrix become with measurement? With, I have more profit than you. My status is better than you. All these things. What has it become? Right? So only in thought is there a parasitic overgrowth. Right? So when we can keep the parasite in check, which is thought, there is your shadow work. There is your training the dragon, because you realize there is no one to train. There is no thinker. If I just see, what is the use for thought? If thought is put in its right place, it's not so emphasized. So again, let's reiterate, thought is me. Thought is my experience. Thought is my knowledge. Thought is my methods. Thought is my practices. And do I realize that me isn't everything, right? That me isn't, what do you say? That my limited beliefs, my limited acceptance and denial, my limited paths of thought, right? Because they're habits, which is the paths that have been trodden the most, very limited. The magic lies where the path has not been trodden, again, where thought does not reside, which means dying and being reborn, which means I see things completely, I see things totally, and I finish every single thing I see. And you don't need an oracle for that. You don't need someone else to see for you, your guardian angel to guard you. Because when you step into that, and it's not really you stepping into it, right? But it's more like when you step out of your own way, seeing is the only thing that is there. Actually, seeing is what is natural, right? Seeing something completely, having clarity, being clear organism-wise, is what is, inherent. It is your birthright. What we do is what gets in the way. Our beliefs are what get in the way. Our thought, our effort, right? All of our comparisons going on in our minds, in the measurements going on, that is what gets in the way of clarity. So clarity is not something that is achieved, nor is it something that, that you can come about with rigorous methodology, right? Living completely is living without method. Kind of like this, how I write things down, that's the 10%, but I rarely look, because it comes out as a flow, right? I'm not reading off a script, but I have the script in case. That's we should be using the Bible. If you don't live the Christ-like attitudes, what is the point of Christ? There is no point of Christ. You've destroyed Christ by studying him, by being a disciple and not following his words. Whether it's Muhammad, whether it's Buddha, right? The whole point is see, observe. Don't so easily go for what you are presented, right? See, just look, because you don't have to accept or deny when you look. Actually, they're complete in different realms. Again, there's thought that needs to measure, accept, deny, put in categories, and that which cannot be put into category, that which cannot be put into labels, that which cannot be named. And again, that is seeing clearly. Immaculate thought, immaculate conception. So there's that. So let's see. So this gets into emotional leaking and emotional leeching. By us giving more thought to problems, we actually feed the problem. It's, again, the best example is a parental environment or situation. The child does something the parent doesn't want the child to do. And so what is the parent's immediate reaction? She scolds the child. And after scolding the child, the parent realizes the scolding didn't help. Why? Because, again, it's a whole lot of thought. It's a whole lot of effort. So I think the best way to address a parent or a child, right? Sometimes the child has to address the parent, is to say, you outline what is said or what is done, right? Let's say there was a mistake that was made, right? You clearly outline the mistake, and then you move on. Because a lot of parents feed their children their own mistakes, right? You have to become a doctor. You have to become an engineer. You have to become a lawyer. Because I'm so sad about my pathetic life. I'm going to micromanage your life and live through you. Again, that's a formula of a parasite. What is not parasitical, what is love, is, you made a mistake there, and it probably wasn't the best thing, but really, deep down, I don't know what the best thing is for you. The best thing I think for you is limited based on what I think is the best thing for you. So really, you have to see for yourself. But if you would allow me to suggest and guide and give you some, of my limited experience, from my limited experience and what I know from the tradition that I have developed over these past years, or maybe it's not tradition at all, from what I see, it seems like it would be best you didn't make those kinds of mistakes. It seems like it'd be best if you didn't eat heavy, dense foods, if you didn't drink alcohol, if you didn't, always live a lustful existence, if you didn't eat so much. That I'm guilty there. If you didn't, do these things, it would be so much better. And then you leave it alone. That's love. Love has no sense of, I need to dominate or force. Although, if someone is violent, love will come and resolve that violence with an equal and opposite force. But again, love is a negative force in some sense, right? There is no positive action involved in love. There's no compulsive mandate involved in love. That is not love. That is hate. That is division. That is me separate from you, telling you what to do. Love is, there is no separation. So who am I kidding, trying to tell you what to do? You see what I'm saying? Who am I kidding, thinking that I am a guru? Who am I kidding, thinking that I'm a king that can delegate to you? So a true king was an organic responsibility. Someone who is taking organic responsibility knows that he can really only at the end of the day take responsibility for himself. And hopefully, when he shines that light, other people will pick it up. This is the key to Operation Lighthouse, is it doesn't matter if the ships come in and, if they don't want to be guided by the light, they must crash. That is their destiny. But the lighthouse is still, and the lighthouse is always showing the way. But there's no point for the lighthouse to step out of its position and micromanage the ship and babysit the ship. So, at the root of this concept, this limited belief of Operation Lighthouse, is that you can't help anyone that doesn't want to be helped. And that is love. To recognize that what is hateful is the matrix, who wants to constantly help things that people don't want to be helped in, help in ways that people don't want to really be deep down be helped in. So there's that. So again, let's not feed the problem emotionally. Attention is the most valuable thing. And we waste so much time in other people's problems. Instead of wasting time in talking and dealing with other people's problems, let's deal with our own. Let's fix our own. And we'll find that once we fix our own, as within so without, right? Once there's a blossom inside, it's much easier for other flowers to blossom and to know, it's time. So let's not leech and leak and dissipate our energies. Let's be able to sit with our own energies problem-free, which means I deal with the problem, I deal with thought when it comes up, and then I let it go, I let it die, I let it wither, I let it disappear, I let it go back into nothing, and I'm not attached and holding to keep the thought alive, because the thought gives me identity and existence, and I'm a cancer survivor, and I'm Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm nobody. I'm no one. I'm not attached to anything. And when I am attached, I see it through and I detach. And really, there's no one detaching or attaching. So there's that aspect to it too. Because I am the world. So how can you be separate from the world? That is your illusion, right? That's why all of these practice, meditation, breath work, all is good, right? But it also strengthens the belief that you are separate, that your breath can be voluntarily activated, all this kind of stuff. What about when you're not thinking of your breath, right? So we have to see that as well, that I am not separate from the world. All these spiritual practices and these methods of fighting is pretending that I am separate. It's already starting from failure. So let's start right, which means let's end it the wrong. So let's end it right, then we start it right. So, yeah, not getting into that lack resonance, right? And there is a balance, there is a logistics to, for instance, if there are some parasites in the community, you do want to still share with them and give them love, but you don't want to create any exploitative relationship. So there is room for talking about that, right? But there's no need to make a big deal about it. If, monetarily it doesn't work out, if we keep feeding people who are not healthy, then we have to stop feeding them. It's not something that's personal. You don't have to be so emotionally involved in these things, right? You try it, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you adjust accordingly. Same thing with the new people that are coming into our community. We can have all these Zoom calls. We can have all this application process, all these questions, right? But people aren't always who they say they are. So you have to see them for who they are first. It's just like a plant. You have to allow it to grow. And then once the harvest time comes, you separate the wheat from the chaff. You take the weeds out and you burn them all at once. In the same sense, we have to give maybe 3 months, a year of people living in the community before we really know, do these people have space within themselves and have that space to create it outside of themselves, and that love and that reciprocation, which means I don't see the community as different from me. When I spend time alone, it's for the community. When I spend time together, it's for the community. Because if I only try to spend time alone and I try to shun the world out, or if I try to define my own existence through others of the community, in both ways I am again degenerating. In both ways I am not acting optimally, and in both ways I'm living in conflict. So really it means, really what community living means is to live alone, all one. Which means I don't tell you what to do. I may suggest to you, I may guide you, I may give you some loving advice, but the loving advice is coupled with knowing that my advice is limited, because it's you who will take it or not take it. So there's no point in me pushing or pulling or forcing or exerting any more effort than necessary. I just do what I need to do and what I can do, and then I let it go. There's so much beauty in that, Dying is letting go. Such a beautiful thing that we've turned into such degeneration and Walking Dead and eating trash. But when I let go of trash, I live completely. When I let go of poison, I live completely. Every breath is a miracle. So can we live with that sense of gratitude, that sense of grace? That is the question. Can you do it? Not just talk about it. So yeah, there's a fine line between addressing a problem and giving all your emotional capacity to a problem and rendering yourself distressed. Meaning, can you tackle a problem still being, how do you say? I don't want to use the word centered, but still being sound, right? Mentally sound, still being stable, still being coherent. Can you see the problem in such a way where you're not so attached to it that it shakes you, that you're shook by the problem? And even if you are shook, you face the fact that I am shaking or I am shook, and you deal with it. But that's the question. Can you face a problem without letting the problem destroy you? All great things that I've been learning, observing, and seeing within the community and myself. Again, the community is myself. So, and myself is the community. And without, let's see. I think that's it, guys. I really love you guys. It's a miracle. It's magic. Just the people coming by. Raji Renata Tuera, people that were already here. Sophie, Marcus, Murray, Julia, and even those that are not really participating completely in our intentions, in our limited intentions. Dom and Kenneth. Life is such a gift. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I think most people run from the ugly or constantly label things as good or bad, but again, the path least taken is to just look at it all. Like a mother looks at a child. Can a mother love a child unconditionally, meaning can she look at all the good and the bad and love the child from the bottom of her heart? That's the only way she can allow the child to transfigure and transform on his own. So ask that question, guys. What is love? I'll see you next time.